One of the things we did is a local economic blueprint. And I think one of the challenges that we have in transition is how do we get this to be seen as a form of economic development? The world is looking for forms of economic development now. And most of the ones that look forward are crazy. I mean, they do all the things that we talked about at the beginning. But how can we really argue that transition is a form of economic development? Well, I think we can now. We've done 3 of these economic blueprints. One for Totnes as a rural market town, one for Herefordshire as a county, and one for Brixton as an urban neighbourhood. There's a very similar one done by Transition Colorado, looking at food for Colorado as well, which is really worth having a look at. I'm sure there's more stuff. But the idea is you look at where does all the money go? How much money does Totnes, for example, spend on food every year? A town of about 8,500 people. Well, we spend £30 million on food, and 22 million of that is sold through just 2 supermarkets. 17.5 through 1 supermarket. That's £22 million running through our fingers like sand every year. In Brixton, it's even worse. In Brixton, 93% of what they spend on food goes out through supermarkets. And of that, 90% is gone the next morning every time they cash up. So if we can pull together a coalition of partners, which we did with this one, and then say we're going to try and move to 10% local food across the board, that's £2 million in our local economy every year. That's economic development. On the other hand, Transition Brixton have been a fantastic example of what transition looks like in a city, in a neighbourhood of a city. They've done fantastic things. They've done all kinds of projects. They have a thing called the Restart Centre that they started up, which is a place where people can bring things along and learn how to repair them. Really, really successful. They have the Brixton Pound, which is a really pioneering local currency scheme. They have David Bowie on their £10 notes, which is so much cooler than having a Queen on there. They have Brixton Energy, which is a really pioneering, fantastic local energy project, which I'll talk a bit more about. And they did an economic blueprint for Brixton. Fantastic piece of work. Identified £60 million a year that could be coming into that economy every year that doesn't. Economic development. But they had no resource to implement it. I talked to the guy Duncan who made that happen. I asked him what difference would it make if you had support for that central piece. He said, they would take off. They would take off. If those of us who are passionate about this could spend more of our time following the leads that passion throws up, we would be able to have a seismic effect on the direction of Brixton. As it is for me, I haven't got time to build on the economy report. I could be doing it full time, and if I would, I could. And we would be able to achieve everything in that report. If we could just get 3 or 4 people working on it for a sizable chunk of their week. You know, this is something which is really starting to happen. It needs some support. So the fourth one then is the last one is about how do we then, if that's what we're talking about. You know, so just to scroll back a minute. Actually, what I found really interesting was when we started transitioning, it was about peak oil climate change, how does the community respond? As I went out and met more and more people doing transition around the world, what they all said to me was, we need to be able to make a living out of this, and we need to be able to show that it works. We need to be credible, we need to be able to show that we can create jobs and so on, and like the cooperative movement did. So how do we bring in investment? So this is in Amherst, and this is a project called All Things Local. So the idea there was, well, we don't have money to start our own business, but we have lots of local suppliers, local farmers, local producers who need a market for their produce. We have lots of people in our town who want that produce, but they can't get hold of it. We'd like to open a shop where that produce can be, but those producers don't have to sit there all day selling the stuff that they've got. They can dig into the system, they can do all the stuff. But we don't have any money to do that, to get that started. How do we do that? When you start a membership, you get people involved from the beginning. There are now 400 members of this cooperative. So you build that demand first, and then the shop becomes a reality. This is in Brixton, in London. So this photograph is taken up on the roof of one of the tallest tower blocks in Brixton. This is South London, inner city, very diverse, high levels of poverty and people who just sort of left behind by the education system and so on. And this guy here is called Agamemnon Terror. I've never met Agamemnon before. He's a fantastic guy, and he's a real powerhouse. Brixton Energy came out of transition town Brixton, out of their energy group. They said, renewable energy gives us the opportunity to do something extraordinary in this place. And we want to be able to set that up in such a way that benefits the community, benefits the town. So the first thing they did over here is, if you look very close to that here, you can see a blue line on here. That's solar panels on the top of this tower. That's Brixton Energy Solar 1. They did a share launch. They sold shares, the minimum share is £250, and most of the shares were kind of bought by sort of white, trendy, middle class Brixton people who likes the sustainability stuff and thought it seemed like a good project. But when they were setting it in place on the roof, they trained local people, local young people how to install solar panels, and they generated a fund to insulate and make their flats in the building more energy efficient. By the time they came to do the second one, Brixton Energy Solar 2, which was these 4 buildings here, a fair bit of what was invested came from people on the estate, people in the buildings. They had money in the bank, they could get a slight bit of a better return investing into this, but more importantly, they saw the benefit it was having to the community. They knew the young people who had been trained the first time around. They could feel the benefits of it. The word started to go around. Get involved with this, it's really fantastic, it's really cool. When they did the third one recently, the vast majority of the shares were bought by people on the estate. They reduced the minimum buy to £50, and a lot of it came from people who were on the estate. What really fired me up was we were standing here on this tower block, and I came in and said, we're going to do all of this. So there was no sense of, well, we'll do a little bit, and then we'll kind of see how it goes. So there's a real ambition, there's no reason why this community can't do all of this. And that's the real passion we need. And the key thing is, they started out without any money up front. They started out with belief that they wanted to make that happen. This gentleman here is George Ferguson, who is the newly elected mayor of the city of Bristol, a city of about 800,000 people. And he always wears red trousers. It's his kind of trademark thing. He always wears red trousers, apart from during Bristol Green Week when he wears green trousers. And I need to drink water. So the Bristol pound, I'm sure there's many local currency schemes here in the US, and many of those have inspired my work for many years. Ithaca Hours, Berkshires, these kind of schemes. So we started, the first sort of transition currency was the top, we started with the Thomas pound, that then inspired the Lewis pound, the Stroud pound, the Brixton pound. The Bristol pound is something different. The Bristol pound is something which is learned from all of those and is the next kind of step forward. So there's these beautiful notes which you can spend in over 500 or 600 businesses in the city who will now take those as being currency. But running alongside the notes is a pay-by-text system. You can walk into a shop and you just text the shopkeeper, this phone goes ping, and that's your transaction done. Very, very simple. You have an account, like an online account, but you can only use that in local businesses. The software to do that, Transition Network, developed with the New Economics Foundation, is open source, anybody can use it anywhere. But the thing that makes the key difference to this is the degree of support from a city council. You can pay your council tax in Bristol pounds. You can pay your business rents in Bristol pounds. You can pay your fares on the bus in Bristol pounds. And this gentleman here, George Ferguson, who's the mayor of the city of Bristol, takes his full salary in Bristol pounds. I don't think he has a mortgage. But there's something about this scheme which is really, really exciting. People, a number of organisations now give their staff the opportunity to take a percentage of their salary in Bristol pounds, which starts to have a marked kind of effect when you talk to people about how they then do their shopping and how they think about their place in the local economy. This has been a scheme where now lots of other cities around the UK are going, that's interesting. We can have a go at that. And there's a number of other ones in the pipeline. This is in the city of Bath. One of the things that came out of Transition Bath was Bath and West Community Energy. There's a community-owned energy company. And if we're looking at bringing investment in, they're another model again, which I think gives a real sense of the potential of bringing investment into these things. So Scottish and Southern, who are one of the big 6 energy companies in the UK, quite enlightenedly said, we'd like to invest £1 million, we need to get you going. I think this is great. Having that investment at the beginning meant that what they were able to do was to offer, as a community share option, the potential to get a good return from day one. That meant that when they launched their community share launch, they raised £750 million in that money. And one of the things that made a difference to that is it was a vehicle where you could invest your pension. You could take your pension out from where it was, and you could move it into a community-owned energy company. So this is really a sort of, the transition town anywhere could have all 20 of these. Any town, every city could have its own local currency, its own local energy company, a community bank, community-owned transport, a place where you can repair stuff, a community-owned shop, a local farm, a different model for caring for the elderly, where the benefits of that go locally, a community construction company. That's where the resilience comes from. Anywhere can do all these things. If we can enable it and we can base it on the foundation of ordinary people deciding they want to make that happen, it's not about saying, we hate this, we hate that, ban this, get rid of that. It's about just stepping across onto something else. You know, there's the divestment movement here, which is gathering pace through 50 global warming and encouraging big bodies to withdraw their investments from fossil fuels, and that's fantastic, absolutely brilliant. But at the same time, we can divest on a daily basis. Every time we go shopping, we have the potential to divest. Which economy do we want to support? What do we want to be creating as we move forward from here? So do have a look at this. But my sense is that actually, when we can get those things in place, we can't do it all. We need government. We need all these different things. But government is not going to act at the moment because they don't feel there's a push. We can create that push by starting to create this different kind of economy. Many of you are part of that. But if you feel that nobody needs permission to do this, nobody needs permission from here. But if anyone here feels they need permission from a guy from Devon who's come all this way to go talk, you have it. I just want to finish off by coming back to our old shop front in Belcoo. Because actually once my incandescence had subsided and I was starting to think about it, the thing that really struck me about this wasn't that they had decided to put stickers over empty shops. It was what they had chosen to represent on the stickers. With the G8 ministers driving past, they could have made some big stickers to go on the front of a Walmart or any of the big chains. Because surely that's what everybody wants, isn't it? Everybody wants high school clothing, wants big anonymous chains where you can actually go shopping and then you even check yourself out at the end and you do all your shopping without even encountering another human being and you pick up loads of stuff all the way around that you didn't really want anyway that you buy just put in those places where you mentally have no good how resist. But actually, it was really fascinating that what they chose to create was the old, locally owned, family-run, independent butcher. The next shop off, which I don't have a photo of, was a delicatessen. And it had a Photoshop delivery boy's bicycle with a basket on the front, leaning next to the window. Because I bet, actually, if you've got those G8 ministers on their own, in the bar, at the G8 after they had a couple of glasses of champagne, and you got talking to them, they prefer to see this. We're all human beings, we have the same needs. We need companionship, we need fresh air, we need water, we need laughter, we need company, we need to feel part of something, of a community that meets our needs. This is the kind of thing that does that. And that was what gave me great hope, because actually ultimately, I spent many years teaching permaculture, I'm sure it's been an experience for you, teaching people to grow their own food, to experience that pleasure, planting something, picking it, eating it for supper. I never had anybody came back and said, do you know what? It ruined my life, that did. I was doing all right till you taught me that. My life just went downhill after you showed me that radish thing. I just think it's just a little bit. So I think there's something there which actually, this is about what meets our needs and what we can do moving forward. So that's me, and I really salute all that you've been doing here, and I hope that this helps in terms of the building of resilience in this area, in this town.